Everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Lodestar's Lending Leaders. My name is Alayna Gardner, and today I'm joined by Brian Rieger to just talk a little bit about the state of marketing in the mortgage industry and the same headlines that we hear over and over again every year. So welcome, Brian.
Well, Lana, thanks for having me. Yeah, I tell people it's kind of like a really long cold. The hot stories are like 6 months coming, 6 months here, 6 months going, it seems. And, we're just really getting into this purchase market that we've been talking about for it seems like a year and a half. And it's only now for a lot of folks just hitting. So, yep, hot topics need something a little different here, I guess.
They do. It definitely feels like every week I go to look for the next trending article for our Lodestar report. And I feel like I end up pulling similar headlines every week because we talk about them for months.
And there are spikes or bursts of news.
Mhm.
It just lately, the layoffs are happening, beginning to happen around the industry that tend to come with the end of a great market. And obviously we haven't had interest rate increases in quite some, I mean, we are now, but over the last 10 years, that's been something that's been pretty rare. So it's a numbers driven industry, and the fact is it starts with the rate, it starts with volume and order application volume and origination volume. So that's what lenders want to read about. It's their daily business, so that's going to dominate the headlines a lot. We also haven't had a ton of regulatory or compliance gotchas lately, it seems like, or maybe I'm just not reading too deeply.
I
But
haven't seen any in a while.
yeah, and I guess GSE reform's taking a little break for a while as well. We'll see that again at some point. But yeah, it's in the headlines have been very numbers oriented, purchase market oriented. Yeah, think about it with the purchase market though. The last time I recall there even being any hint of a purchase market, and I'm a PR guy. I'm not a mortgage lender, so I could be wrong,
Mhm.
and I folks will correct me in the notes here. But I think the last time I remember us talking about a purchase market was maybe during 2018. And then it never really, if I remember correctly, then we suddenly refi just came back anyways. So, unbeknownst to anybody. But, if you go back beyond 2018, we haven't seen a lot of real purchase markets over the past 20 years. And one of my old clients and a good friend, Joe Murin, who at one point was the president of Ginnie Mae, not too long ago, he kind of marveled at how folks treated a purchase market like the sky is falling. He said, this is all we had sometimes when I was coming up in the industry. And, but I guess, you get used to refi, and it's an easier way to make, profit. So
Yeah.
here we are.
No, I definitely think there's been this, I came into the industry during the refi boom very much, and kind of seeing the transition out of that has very much felt sometimes like all news is bad news
Yeah.
because, we're going down. So we're hearing about the layoffs, we're hearing about the rise of this mythical purchase market that I have yet to see. And I think, now we're starting to see the impact that the housing shortage is having on lenders, right? Because you can't have a mortgage if you don't have a house.
Well, you're right. And I think there are going to be two trendy stories coming out of that eventually this year, or maybe next year. I don't know. We talk about the layoffs, but we have a really interesting dichotomy, I think. And maybe this is more, I serve both the mortgage industry, and I have a lot of clients on the title insurance industry as well. So maybe this impacts title more than mortgage. But you have these layoffs happening on the front lines across the industry, both title and mortgage. But at the same time, we're coming through the great resignation, right? We're seeing a labor shortage in general. Now, a purchase market is going to require, and maybe I just haven't thought this through enough, but a purchase market means more closings, more realtors, more dealing directly with two consumers, and more service. It tends to be more hand holding and whatnot. So, at the same time, I'm wondering, these firms that also have to staff up to deal with that sort of thing are laying, and of course, they're laying off loan originators and frontline personnel, obviously. But I think you're eventually going to start. And I'll preface this by saying this is not an industry that has had HR type news on the front page very often. You're going to start hearing words like engagement, retention. It's going to lead back into a topic that's near and dear to you guys at Lodestar, automation, right? Taking the most basic tasks, and instead of wasting hours building a template, having, data populated instead. And in that way, the people you have can go on to the more complex tasks. And, the more engaged one is, that the more content one tends to be, I would imagine. So I think you're going to see that. The other thing is, I just saw, and I may box these numbers, but Black Knight, I think, just released the final origination volume for 2021. And as I recall, it was something like maybe 4 trillion total with a T, but 1.7 was purchased. Now that's, again, I'm not a mortgage lender, but that seems like, if you can take refi out of that, that's still a pretty good year. There's still a lot
Yep.
of opportunity out there, but of course, at the same time, the industry has bloated, has bulked up, and ramped up in order to serve the crazy demand for refi. So there's going to be, I think, a natural correction. And I'm no economist, but I gotta believe that 1.7 trillion, and I think they're calling for similar purchase numbers this year. So there's opportunity out there for folks who have a good plan, I would think, at least. But again, my job's just to get my folks into the newspaper, so to speak. So maybe I'm not talking out of school here.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really great pivot of, you do try to get, native content into these platforms, like Housing Wire, MBA, MPA, all the M's.
Yep.
And I think it's really interesting to see what editors are into and looking forward to, because I think it showcases kind of where we're going as an industry. And we're starting to see more of our articles get accepted that are about clarity and providing that service to the borrower. Where do you think that is going in, the near future with our publications that guide us?
Well, that's a great question. Our publications, many of them are in transition. And, part of my job is obviously to know editors, publishers, reporters in the publications that, my clients, their clients are reading. And so it seems to me that in some way or another, most of the best known trade publications are in transition. Okay, advertising ain't what it used to be. It's not quite the revenue stream it was, and that starves them a little bit. And I see many of the trades, and Housing Wire is doing an especially good job. Hey guys, you're all doing great if you're watching, guys, but Housing Wire is really kind of taking that step, from what I can see on the outside, to straddling the line between content provider and journalist. Okay, two different things. They may overlap, interact, and whatnot. And you'll see Housing Wire is doing a little bit of both. So it's no longer a typical editor's week to you just plow through copy all week and have some ideas and meetings. And not that they weren't busy before by any means, but now they're also recording a podcast every day, or they're doing virtual webinars, or those sorts of things. And as a result, you're seeing coverage change a little bit. But I'll say overall, the guiding principle for a trade pub is: are they going to read it? Are they going to click it? And then underlying that, hopefully, are there going to be enough eyeballs reading it and clicking it that advertisers will get what they want? That's always still a consideration. They used to divide advertising and publication as church and state, and those lines have blurred a little in the last 10, 15 years. But I think it still comes back to, if I'm for Housing Wire, who goes to, or let's give someone else some love, National Mortgages. They go to mortgage lenders, not just mortgage lenders, but that's one of the primary. So they're going to run what they believe mortgage lenders are going to read about. So it kind of starts there. Now, a great story is still a great story, and sometimes you can get away with something that an editor might not think a lender might typically want to read. There is crossover if it's compelling enough, but still, I think, end of the day, whether it's native content on your own site, whether it's a posting on LinkedIn, or whether it's an article in MPA or whatnot, is the person that's intended to read that going to read it and find it interesting enough to come back again to see what's next.
I think that's really great. I think so much of our content, you're shouting into one of the loudest storms right now when we're talking about content consumption. And
Mhm.
it's so important to create content that is not only engaging, but worthwhile for the reader or the listener or the watcher. Because, we're talking about all these different forms of content, and everyone consumes content so differently now
Yeah,
than they did even a year ago.
for
It's
sure.
constantly changing. How do you, as someone in PR and in marketing, kind of stay in front of that as things change and as things, develop almost every day?
Right. If you're asking how like a PR marketing, how do they stay on top of that? How do they know what
Yes.
so that when they
How do
produce their
you how do you not completely fall behind? Because I feel like it's a hard job.
oh, I feel like I've been an imposter for 20 years now. I keep waiting for a law firm to call me up and remind me I should be practicing law somewhere instead. But yet you all keep having me back. It's hard. It's keeping your eyes and ears open. It's talking to anyone who will listen to you, which I have no problem doing. It's and talking ad nauseum to people who will listen to me. But it's just kind of keeping an eye out, listening and paying attention because right now, especially on the mortgage side, when it comes to content marketing, the other industries are light years ahead of us. It's just it's the concept of content marketing is just now starting to gain acceptance, and it's advanced quickly. It's gone from, hey, we're all at home during the pandemic and our sales folks can't get on planes, so what's this iPhone? What can this iPhone do for me? Oh, I can put a recording on LinkedIn, and some people have done a fantastic job just with that. But it's still the Wild West out here, and you could still use concepts that worked in other industries 5 years ago, and they'll be new on the mortgage side. It tends to be, as we say, a
Mhm.
conservative industry, but I'm starting to see that understanding. So if anything, I think it's just going to get faster.
Oh,
I think,
100%.
yeah. So I don't know, hang on for the ride.
100%. Well, I know our time is about to wrap up here, so I'm going to ask you the question that we ask all of our guests. What gets you out of bed in the morning and excited about the day?
Oh, well, without even thinking about my kids, obviously, they're my why. They're why I go to work. They're why I do anything. I think anyone would say that. But you know, I, I I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. I went to law school and then I worked for a publisher. I've worked for a few businesses, and my business kind of fell into my lap. I was very fortunate. But 14 years later, I don't think I could go back to working for someone again. And it's mostly I love watching it grow. I love, like you said, staying it when I started my company, True Impact Communications, it was all media relations. It was just be on the phone pitching all the time, draft your press releases. That content marketing wasn't yet a thing on the mortgage or title side. So in the last 5 years, though, I've gone from being really more of just a flack to having to be a content producer as well, or having to be more adept with social media. I'm more of a blogger these days than I am a PR professional, and it's kind of cool to see that transition. And it's a lot. It's really satisfying when you said how do you stay in front of all this? So I imagine you feel somewhat the same way here. It's really cool when you can help a client stay in front of those things, and you can see positive results come from that. So.
Our favorite thing to hear over at Lodestar is we see you everywhere and, we can't seem to escape you, right? Like that is what you want to hear as a marketer. You're like, I want you to open every door and find me.
On my side, if I'm having a good year or a good month and I can point to a pile of trade publications and say, open one of those up, I bet I'm a ghostwriter in there. And sometimes I can do that, sometimes I can't. Depends on if I'm hot or cold, but it's a similar sort of thing. It's kind of a cool feeling to know that I'm helping different brands get closer to their business goals through thought leadership, through brand exposure and brand messaging. And it's a very cool feeling to kind of build something and then see it start to take on a life of its own, for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Brian, for your time today. And as always, it's a pleasure to work with you day in and day out. Where can people find you?
Well, you can go to my website, which, yes, does need to be updated, the shoemaker's children and all that. So it's trueimpactcommunications.com, all one giant word. Or you can reach out to me on social media, on LinkedIn. I even occasionally wander into Twitter and places like that. But, all the contact information is there. And if you even just want to chat about content marketing or PR, I'd love to hear from y'all.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.